in 2009 was the #1 overall in the state of Florida, but just a quick correction. Thank you for having me today. I'm really excited about being here and not necessarily talking about myself, but sharing my journey and hopefully providing some insight as you embark into the entrepreneurial world, and a very exciting world at that. Let's see if we go to here. So I figured I'd give you a little background on my entrepreneurial journey, which started when I was 15 years old. I was selling water filters door to door. And I would go by and drop a cart off and leave the water filter for a week. And this was after school. Every day I'd go and just go do cold calling. And I would leave a filter for a week, and then it was called the puppy dog close. They would use it, they would love it, and then they'd want to buy it. I ended up making some pretty good money. And then one Saturday, one of my friends, my dad's friends, asked me if I was doing anything, and I said no. And he said, "You want to paint this hallway for me in this building I own?" Sure. How much? $50. All right, $50 at that young age. That was a lot of money. So I did it, and then I came back to him and I said, "Is there any more of these you want me to do?" He said, "Yeah, actually I have this hallway and that hallway." And then I realized how I was undercharging, and he was really getting a great deal, and started raising my prices. And eventually I started what was known as Jay's Painting. So I started a painting company. And at first it started off in the weekends, but by the time I was a junior in high school, it turned into two full-time crews working while I was in class. And I would go and skip one class a day, which usually was English, and go check on my crews, which were up to no good, always. But it was a daunting task being a 15-year-old, managing grown men. And we actually even got to have one truck at one point, and they would all pile into it and drop people off and so forth. Along the way, my dad had been working for Allstate, and they pulled out of the state of Massachusetts, and he had to become an independent agent. And he had asked me if I wanted to go into business with him, and I was definitely ready to hang up the brushes. So he had to continue staying working at Allstate, and I got the opportunity to go and open an office, pick the logo, find the location, hire the employees, buy the furniture. And I worked every day, 7 in the morning until 2, 3 in the morning. My friends would be out partying, driving by and see the light on in my office, which was on the main road. And I just worked and worked and worked, and we really crushed it. I did that for a few years, and then I decided that I was smarter than my father. I don't know if anybody's ever had that issue. So I decided that I needed to start my own commercial insurance agency across the street, because we needed to come from a level of sophistication and not be this neighborhood insurance agency. So I was running both. My dad was really retired the entire time, and I would just walk across the street. And this is where I started to become what I thought was big man on campus. I was a young entrepreneur. I was 18 years old at the time. I bought a house. I had the BMW, and I thought I was so cool. And I started this commercial insurance agency. And then I crafted a type of insurance policy that hadn't really been done before, and we had submitted about $42 million worth of insurance premium in 5 months. It was an enormous amount of insurance. And insurance companies, who I thought I knew more than them as well, I thought they were missing the opportunity of a lifetime. So I decided I wasn't just going to be an insurance broker, I was going to be an insurance company and actually underwrite the risk. And in order to get there, I needed to show success to a bunch of potential investors and so forth. And we were doing at the time a penny stock offering, which was going to follow up after a limited partnership offering. And I had some mentors to help me do that. Back then we didn't have the internet. I had the insurance library in Boston, and I would drive every day and grab a bunch of books and take them home and read them all night long and so forth. But again, my dad had some good advice to me back then. It was keep the nuts small, and I just thought, that's why this is still small time. I want to be big time. And so I started financing clients that the insurance companies and the premium insurance companies, premium finance companies would not finance. I knew better than them, of course. And it all just came unraveled. I was 22. I lost everything I owned for the first time. 3 more proceeded. 3 more followed along. But I was broke. The house was foreclosed. I had nothing left. I literally leveraged every penny I had, and then I thought, wow. And by the way, I listed some companies here. You see all these startups. Startup number 6 was a seafood business. Someone had come into my office and they wanted to insure a truck. And I said, well, what is this for? He said, well, I'm starting a seafood business. I said, you need a partner? And you can see I'm doing all these things now. I got 2 insurance agencies. Now I'm in the medical equipment business. I'm in the seafood business. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, driving around from office to office, check on things. And then when it came crushing down, I said, you know what, I don't really like living here. I think I'm going to get out of Dodge. So I came to Tampa. And I partied my butt off for 6 glorious months because I didn't get to go to college. I chose the business track. I didn't go to college. And I got kicked out of every school I ever went to. I was arrested 9 times before I was 17 years old. And I got this reset. All my friends were partying while I was working in the office. They literally would be driving by at 1 o'clock in the morning and seeing the lights on in the office, me working on form letters, working on contact management, whatever it might be. So I got to move to Florida, and of course I was broke, but after 6 months, I got my first job. And I went from selling really sophisticated insurance products to becoming Willy Loman in Death of the Salesman. I literally had a briefcase that size with a working telephone system, selling phone systems to small businesses. I was humiliated, and that was the first time I realized that my ego was completely out of control, and that a lot of the things I was doing was for this. But while I was working there as an entrepreneur, I saw another opportunity. So I started another business while I was working there to help people save money on the phone systems so that they could afford them in the first place. And that was by selling competitive long distance service. Back then it was like 60 cents a minute with AT&T. Then we came in at 30 or 20. It was a big discount. Now it's free, right? But so I started this company, and I said, all right, well, I'm going to run this for, until I can do it full time. And by the time I got there, I sold about 42 accounts, and then one account didn't pay their bill, and then I lost everything again. And I had been fired, by the way, because I wasn't selling phone systems, because they were saying that, why aren't you selling the system? I said, well, they don't need them. And they didn't. They just didn't. You're supposed to trick them into it. I said, no, that's not what I do. So nonetheless, I went back to get another job. This was my second job. I never really worked for anybody before. I didn't know how to do that. So I worked for a company, and I started selling phone systems again. And then I saw the opportunity. I said, I'm going to try this hand. And when I went to that job, I said, listen, sir, I have this side business. It doesn't compete with what you do. And someday I'm going to come to you when I'm ready to go on my own. And I did. When I got to the point where I was making $1,500 a month and I could pay for some food and some basic necessities, I said, I'm out. And very shortly after, I closed the Outback Steakhouse account. And I started doing all the turnkey openings nationwide for Outback Steakhouse, putting in the phone systems, the cabling, the local and long distance service. I ran that for about 10 years, or 8 or 10 years, and I ended up selling the book of business and collected on it for a few years, and it was my first real successful entrepreneurial gig. And then I said, I'm going to go buy a company. The startup business is very difficult, starting up an enterprise. So I'm going to go buy an existing company, I thought. And I did. I had a great business partner, but we grew it to sales it had never achieved before, but we ran it into the ground 4 years into it. So that was the conclusion of that. And then we started, and we sat back, and we came across a book called Good to Great. Many of you may have heard of it. And we said, you know what, we're going to be, and by the way, let me just talk about this company F1. It started off where they were just an IT company. If we had just left it the way it was, it would have been so successful. But it was my bright idea to say, well, we should be doing cabling, and we should be doing telecommunications, and we should be doing application development and websites, and we did. We had 20 web developers here, we had a couple cabling guys there, some data center folks, trying to be all things to all people. And we actually thought it was a selling feature, where we'd be a single point of contact. Well, we see how that worked out. We started IT Authorities. Eureka. And I can honestly tell you the reason why our company is successful is because of the focus. We decided we were going to be the best in the world at one thing, and that was going to be managed services, and we weren't going to let the focus vampires distract us. And you'll see they come out every beginning of the year, right around January and February. The floodgates open, people start calling you because they start a new year and they want to get new partners selling products on their behalf. We stuck to our guns, and it is probably the most disciplined thing you can do when you start your business, is because when you're a startup, you typically don't have a lot of cash on hand. And if you don't have a lot of cash on hand, you can't typically pass up opportunities that give you cash, even though they're not within your wheelhouse. Big mistake. Monumental mistake. And we didn't make it. We were militant discipline towards this focus. And yeah, we passed up a lot of money, but we eventually became so good at what we did. Everyone's noodle was wrapped around one thing. It was the delivery of managed services and the improvement of the delivery of managed services. It was no focus vampires, very laser focused. Some of these accolades, obviously we're very proud of, being voted best companies for leaders by CEO magazine, and being in the Fast 5,000 privately held companies in America by Inc. magazine 3 years in a row, being in the top 100 managed service providers in the world, cloud providers in the world. This year that's a typo, sorry, 2015, we had 137% growth. So 10 years into it, and I can tell you that 8 years into it, we still were not delivering what I call the holy grail of our business, which is consistency. We were still not consistent. So even with all this focus, and even with the philosophy of documentation and process and automation, even with all of that, 8 years into it, we were not firing on all cylinders yet. 10 years into it, we hit it. And while our revenue has always gone like this, it went like this in 2015. And it was a beautiful thing. It was such an amazing thing. We just bought the DeVry University building, which was on the corner of the Howard Franklin Bridge. We're moving in March 18th. So I thought I'd share some of the biggest lessons we learned, and I've already covered one of them. It's focus. That distraction, if you want to be good, you need to focus on it. That's how I sell against my competitors. I say, our competitors have this department and that department, and nobody knows really what the other departments are doing. We have one department, one deliverable. And because of that, it has become what it is today. But you need focus, that's one thing, but you also need process. I've come across another book, which I'm going to share with you here. It's called The E-Myth. Of all my mentors and all the business groups I'm involved with, they all see this as one of the best business books they've ever read. The key to running a business, and there's the E-Myth, the entrepreneurial myth. A lot of folks get involved for the wrong reasons. There's a story about a pie maker. She makes great pies. Everybody loves her pies. Everyone's like, you should sell these pies. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go open up a pie shop and sell these pies. So she does that. She spends the money. She starts selling pies. And then next thing you know, it's catching on. People are out the door waiting for these unbelievable pies. And she notices that she gets in around 4 in the morning. She bakes all morning, and then she starts to sell all day, and then at the end of the day, she has to clean the place up and then do all the numbers and close out and close out the register and so forth. And she's out at 2 o'clock in the morning. And at the end of the day, she's making less than she's ever made. She's working harder than she's ever worked. And does anybody really sign up for that? When you're an entrepreneur, you have to decide, are you going to be a manager? Are you going to be a tactician, a craftsman? Or are you going to be an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is somebody who works on the business and not necessarily in the business. And that doesn't happen out of the gate, but you have to work toward that. And you only can work toward that when you duplicate yourself and you design it with taking a step back with designing processes, written, documented processes that a 4-year-old can follow. So you would probably think that I'm a little gun shy with all of the risk I took over the years, basically all these startups and taking everything I've owned every single time. And by the way, when we lost F1, we were $1 million in debt in 2015. We had to sell our houses, empty our bank accounts. We lost everything, and we financed the rest. We didn't believe in bankruptcy, so we financed the rest that was left over. So you would think I'm a little gun shy, and I am a little bit more risk averse than I was when I was 20. But there's a thing called measured risk, right? You want to have a calculated risk. Everything is a risk. A relationship is a risk. You're not going to melt if you fail. Don't be afraid of failure. One of our customers is Eckerd Kids. It's a great organization. And this is taken out of their strategic plan, which is an amazing strategic plan. It's on their website under eckerd.org. It's awesome. But the vision, it says, butterflies fly only because they were willing to sacrifice what they were for what they could become. People who take no risk usually dwell in cocoons of complacency, seldom accomplishing more than a fearful crawl. How true. You do have to take a risk. So I thought I wanted to get through that part, what have I done, where have I come from, rather quickly, because I really wanted to get into the philosophies and the principles that got us where we are and the kind of culture that we maintain in our company. But these are life lessons. So I want to share some of these with you. And if you walk in our office, there's a 30-foot long wall, and across the top it says, I work harder on myself than I do my job. You wouldn't expect to hear that from an employer. But if you're working harder on your job than you are on yourself, you have the cart before the horse. Another one says, I don't ask what I'm getting, I ask what I'm becoming. Think about that. We all know those people. What am I getting? Why would I do that? That's not my job. This isn't my building. And then there's people that do things for what it makes them. I was just in the men's room, and there was at least 3 different pieces of paper on the floor. And it took me but 1 second to grab a napkin and grab it and throw it away. And why did I do that? No one was watching. It was just for me. It was so I could walk out with my shoulders back, knowing I take care of the necessary things. Begin each day with the powerful intention of being better than you were the day before. Just, that seems so simple, but I gotta tell you, I often find myself not doing that. Like, I'll be 2 weeks into it, and I'm like, all right, well, how have I improved? How have I grown? And if you don't do a checkup from the neck up every once in a while, you might just be stagnant, and stagnant is death. This next one is give everything you have and then give some more. So has anybody here ever heard of the 2-12 concept? By raising your hands. It's a really cool concept, very simple. At 211 degrees, water is hot, and 212, water boils. 1 extra degree creates boiling water, from hot to boiling, and boiling water creates steam, and steam can power locomotives. 1 little extra degree. What is that 1 degree in your life that you can do that'll make you uncomfortable? Think about that. Your degree, your ability to maintain an uncomfortable state will dictate your success in life, in relationships, in everything. That little extra degree. Is the people that you see, that you admire, are they this much better and greater? Or are they just doing a little bit more than everybody else is willing to do? I believe it's just that little bit, just that little extra. So it's called the 212 concept. And I'm sharing these with you. I hope they resonate with you. There's a lot I'm going to be sharing with you, and maybe you pick 1 or 2 of these and you concentrate on it, because it could be a little bit of an information overload. But you obviously have to become goal-oriented to be successful. People with goals succeed. People with goals tend to reach those goals. And you have to be accountable. You have to be accountable to yourself. One of the things that I found is we will do more to avoid pain than we will do to gain pleasure. So our subconscious mind kind of tricks us into thinking that, everything's cool, when we're in fact stagnant. We're not growing. So we need a method to, I'll give you an example how I discovered this. I used to work out with an app, and I would put in how many reps and how much weight and so forth, and at the end of the workout I'd go home and I'd sync it with my computer and look at my graphs, and I'm a little anal, I get it, but it excites me to see progress, you know? And I would do that, and then I realized, I was looking at one of them, I was like, there's something wrong with this formula, it's not right. So I look at the formula's correct. It was leg day. I hated leg day. And my subconscious mind would fool myself to think that I was sick or tired or had something else I had to do. I had to go to this networking event, even though I hadn't gone to it yet. I had to go this Wednesday, leg day. And if you would have asked me, when was the last time you did legs? I would have said probably about 3 or 4 weeks. And I was thinking about this, and I looked at it, and it was 2.5 months. That's how powerful your subconscious mind is to keep you from your own greatness. We'll get into conversations in a moment, and the next thing is, I believe you need to have a mentor or mentors. I share this presentation with one of my mentors. I meet on a regular basis with a mentor. I do a coaching session where once a week we meet, and it's $100 a minute if you're late, because it's important. We do Google Docs, and we share, we put our goals, what we're going to do the next week, and then we're accountable to each other. We're accountable to ourselves, and we're accountable to each other. So get mentors. And by the way, people love to be a mentor. They want to share. This is why I'm here. I love to share. I want to give you stuff so that you don't fall through the same pitfalls that I fell through, and be armed better than I was when I went into the world, the entrepreneurial world. So, goals. This is where we chart our course. How many people here have worked on a resume? Okay? How many people have spent more than an hour working on a resume? 2 hours, 3 hours, weeks, months. Yes, a lot of time. A lot of time on something you call a resume, but isn't it a plan? Isn't it a plan to gain employment? And doesn't it say, this is what I have done, so therefore this is what you can expect that I will do? And you put some time into it. It's a very important document for something very big in your life. Your job, your career, right? But it's not your life. Your job isn't your life. And it's not a granule of sand on the beach that is your life. It's a section of the beach. A big part of your life, but it's not your life. But you put a lot of time and investment in that. How many people have planned a vacation? Excellent. What do you do when you go on vacation? Pick a place to go. So you pick a destination. Then you what? Figure out how you're going to get there. And then you figure out when you're going to do it. And then what you're going to do while you're there. A plan. Now that is a granule of sand on the beach that is your life. It's just a little vacation. It's just a little nook in your life. But you put a lot of time into it, right? Okay. When we bring in new employees, I ask them, do you have goals? And they say, yes, we have goals. I say, great, awesome. Show them to me right now. Oh, well, they're in my head. Well, those aren't goals. Those are called wishes. We all have wishes. I wish to win the lottery. Those are wishes, those aren't goals. Goals are something you reverse engineer. You pick a destination, you figure out how you're going to get there day by day by day. So, if you spent that much time on a resume and that much time on a vacation for something that's in your life, isn't it time to invest in a plan for your life? Or do we just want to leave it up to the winds of change? Hope for good circumstances? I don't think so. So, one great quote I come across, I love it, I use it all the time. If you do things casually, you'll have casualties. Think about that for a moment. You probably have some casualties from being casual, having a casual approach towards something. You may have said, I want this, but maybe you weren't serious enough to write it down, to make a plan, and so forth. And then what happens? You didn't get there. What's the casualty of failure when it's of your own effort? It starts to hit your self-esteem a little bit and your self-confidence. and measurable. Committing to goals. I took this and I thought, wow, this is a pretty good statistic. Committing goals to paper and reviewing them regularly gives you 95% higher chance of achieving your desired outcomes. Studies show that 3 to 5% of people in the world have written goals. Wow, isn't that amazing? You got 2 ways to go into the world, reactive or proactive. Hope for the best or design your future, architect your life. They will change, they will. But goals are something that you've reverse engineered on what you have to do each day in order to get there. You have to do something daily. So someone says, I want to lose weight. That's over here. But then they eat donuts and hot dogs and drink sodas. You know what the place in between is? Delusion. And goals aren't about like getting the house or getting the job or getting the car or getting the love of your life. It's about the person you have to become in order to get the goal. That's why you have to work harder on yourself than you do everything else. And you have to figure out, what are your values of your life? You might have health, I hope you do. You might have family, maybe spirituality, career. There's all these beautiful things that you could be focusing on as a balance for your life. So, if you have goals and plans, you need to grow in order to get there, right? So, in order to grow, you need a growth plan. A good growth plan will focus on both personal and professional development, and it will raise your standards. You know what your standards are. You have to identify what those are and figure out how you can raise them. You have to be willing to do what others are unwilling to do, and you have to be willing to live in that uncomfortable state, that 1 degree. The longer you're in it, because you know it's easier not to go to the gym, it's easier not to study longer, it's easier not to, make yourself vulnerable to a person. It's easier. It's harder to make those other decisions, much harder. But those are the people that get along in life. So charting your course. You can't change your life overnight, generally speaking. But you can change the trajectory of your life immediately. They say, what's the definition of success? Earl Nightingale once said, the definition of success is working towards a worthy ideal. So that's not some destination. Because success and entrepreneurialism and business and personal life isn't about getting somewhere. It is truly about the journey. It's about the process. It's about the person you become and how you share it with other people and help them get there as well. So I hope that you'll take some time to invest in architecting your life, charting your course, so to speak. And I'd like to give you an assignment, coming from someone who's never been to college. To a bunch of college students, this is kind of ironic, but I love it. I actually give this assignment to all of the new employees that come on board at our company. And the first one is go home and sit in solitude and have a conversation with your 13-year-old self. Would that 13-year-old self be proud? Probably, right? Are you where you think you would have wanted to have been at 13? Sit in solitude, sit in silence, and just contemplate your life for a moment. And the person that you want to be, and the kind of life you want to have. And then write a letter to yourself. It doesn't have to be long. Write a letter to yourself that says, I had the most amazing year. And then fill in the blank. Give yourself a little credit. Nothing negative in this letter, just, I had the most amazing year. I did this, I did that, blah, 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 blah. Whatever it is, give yourself a little credit. It's important to do this letter first because you need to be in the state of mind for the second letter. The second letter starts the same way, but it's dated 1 year in the future. And it says, I had the most amazing year. Now, what would that be for you? What would be literally the most amazing year? And watch what happens when you contemplate that for a second. Because that little saboteur comes in and says, well, you can't do that. That won't happen. That's really unlikely. Don't let that happen. Don't be a wimp about this. Really push yourself. Really raise your standard. What would be the most amazing year of your life in 12 months? Write it, date it in the future, 1 year in the future. From that, I invite you to make a dream board. Create a dream board and you have it. I have it at home, in my closet where I get dressed, and I have it at my desk. And every day I set out into the world, having looked at that, having focused on what's important to me, so that I don't go into the world reactively. I go into it proactively. Because if you do things casually, you'll have casualties. So a dream board will be symbolisms of the stuff you put in your letter from the future. I'll share mine in a moment. I won't dig into it because we're running up on time, but and then get somebody to be accountable to and meet with on a monthly basis or weekly basis, whatever you can do, for a half hour, an hour, have coffee, and be accountable to each other and hold each other to a high standard. And then believe that you can. It's a big piece. This is my dream board. Across the top of my behaviors that I want to have during the day. I want to be disciplined. The second picture there is me focusing on the man I want to be, projecting on the person I am. The next one is me reflecting on the man that I was that day. Being decisive, believing in myself and my people. Constant never-ending improvement. 212, being happy. Then my family. Then my health goals. Then some financial goals. Then some materialistic goals. When you start to make this, you get excited, man. And you know, this one here is probably 2 days old. I had a new one already. It's always being modified. And as your life changes and as your values change, it shall change. When I was single and running hard, I had pictures of Vegas and women on boats. I mean, those were on my dream board. You know, now it's about my family and my kids and so much more. As I've evolved, so have these. So it takes serious action. How you do anything is how you do everything. One of the most important quotes I think I've ever come across. How you do anything is how you do everything. Always be reflecting on your actions. Always be reflecting on your thoughts. Are you being a good leader? Are you being the best version of yourself wherever you are? And if you're going to embark upon this process, I invite you to clean out your junk drawer, in your closet, in your garage, in your glove box, in your car, and come from a level where you feel organized and buttoned up, like you can do the necessary things. It'll empower you, it'll give you the self-confidence you need. And win the conversation in your head, because it's happening. You know it happens. As you go, you have a choice to make. Take the harder route, take the easy route. Do a little bit more, do a little bit less. Your success will depend on that conversation and who wins it. And I'm going to conclude with this. I searched for this picture. Let's say you're on a boat and you want to move and you're anchored up. What do you have to do? Anyone? You got to pull up the anchor. And I chose this anchor because that kind of looks like a heavy anchor, doesn't it? And it seems like a daunting task. And it is. But you only need to pull up the anchor this much to move it. As soon as that anchor frees from the ocean floor, the boat starts to move. And this journey starts with just that bit, that little bit, something that you can do today that's just that little bit for yourself. That's all I have for you today. I hope I've given you some gems, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
On behalf of the University of Tampa and Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization, we would like to present you with this kind little gift for being our keynote.
Thank you.
So we do have about 10 minutes for questions. If you guys have any questions, please feel free. Now is the time. And also, Jason will be part